Recently this year, I found my niche series, one that hooked me like not a lot of manga can do, WataMote. Actually, nah, I'm not reading all that. Y'all got that. I'm gonna put it on the screen. Let's just call it what the streets have dubbed it, WataMote. Written and drawn by two separate people under the pen name Nico Tanigawa. And before I get deep into this video, I want to admit I did not like WataMote when I first read it. I had to struggle through 8 volumes or so before I started to change my mind on the series. So if my run-in with WataMote was only the anime, which covers 4 volumes, I wouldn't be too high on it at all. And this isn't a campaign to get you to read through X amount of episodes and chapters of WataMote in the hopes that it gets good. I'm actually an advocate of dropping series that don't pique your interest no matter how early. I'm just explaining my experience with WataMote. You may have already heard, but WataMote is the manifestation of cringe. It's a hotbed for secondhand embarrassment, facepalm moments, and even depression. However, WataMote has a certain charm to it. It's awkward, but endearing. So, for my rookies brand new to the world of WataMote, the synopsis for this series is as follows. Tomoko Kuroki is an unpopular high school girl. She is devoid of any social skills and has a bad case of the ugly as fuck. Tomoko tries her best to survive what's left of her miserable life by obtaining popularity, but falls flat on her face routinely, which is further emphasized by all of the chapters being titled fail instead of chapter. Now, while the plot doesn't sound stellar enough to hook you immediately upon hearing it, I think where WataMote is unique is in its MC, Tomoko. I'm sure there are plenty of series that focus on the life of their anxiety-riddled MC, but Tomoko stands out against the rest because she is the most genuine version of what I believe to be a social recluse. For example, let's take Hachiman from Snafu, and mind you, what I'm about to say shouldn't be taken as a slight against the series, it's just an observation. Hachiman is depicted as, or at the very least, thought to be what a loner looks like. He has those rotten eyes, a standoffish personality, and barely has friends. For me though, that's only scratching the surface for the attributes associated with true loners, and as such, Hachiman doesn't embody the essence of the type of character people might think he is. I don't think the face of social ineptitude should be a guy who is smart, perceptive, good-natured, and is a decent looking person, no pause. Tomoko, however, is none of those things. If you attended a public school, you probably met someone like Tomoko, someone who seemed weird, looked funny, and kept to themselves. And if you didn't know someone like that, it was probably yo ass. On a serious note, because Tomoko is such a great reject character, she can be universally empathized with because everyone suffers from social anxiety, of course, in variations. Take simple moments like Tomoko having a hard time ordering at fast food restaurants or her being self-conscious about eating alone. These are instances I think most people can relate to on some level, so although Tomoko falls on the extreme side of the socially anxious spectrum, she is one of the best to embody the ideal. Oddly though, as I stated at the start of the video, I was fighting for my fucking life reading early WataMote because Tomoko is a double-edged sword. While I applaud WataMote for giving us what I feel like is a clear picture of what a loner is, actually reading it was downright depressing. This series does not sugarcoat Tomoko's lifestyle and isn't afraid of making her look bad. I can't count how many times I literally facepalmed at watching Tomoko be Tomoko. There was a time she went to school with bugs all over her face, the time she gave herself vacuum hickeys to impress her younger cousin, and the time she thought this was a good makeover. My problem though wasn't Tomoko doing things of that nature, it was the fact that there was often no relief in the suffering nor a lesson learned on the side of Tomoko. As a caveat, I've only read the manga, and from talking to my friend Shane on the matter, I learned that anime may give you a completely different outlook on WataMote. Maybe because of the look of it, rearranging an order of events, I don't know, but once again, I can only speak from my vantage point. I had to witness Tomoko go through non-stop social grief, making me dread to read chapters because of the vicarious shame I endured, only for her to do the same things to end up in those situations again, and it was frustrating as a reader. Now, a series maintaining a constant state of somberness isn't inherently bad, but WataMote isn't fucking Goodnight Poon Poon. It's a comedy series that chose to beat up on Tomoko a little too much. When Tomoko is the butt of the joke 95% of the time, at some point I stopped laughing and I started crying. As someone who wanted to see Tomoko win at life sometimes, I sought reprieve from the hell that was WataMote, but to no avail, at least until later in the series.
I won't go into detail about what sparked the change in WataMote, but for sure, it evolved over the course of time. It started off as a gag manga with a ton of untapped potential and gradually grew into a coming-of-age story. WataMote successfully shed its old reputation, as according to my anime list currently, the anime is barely clinging on to a score of a 7, which in my opinion isn't the accurate score for what WataMote is in its totality. For that reason, I say people who only watch the anime might feel completely different from people who read all of the manga, since the story of WataMote matured greatly. What stayed consistent though is WataMote's comedy, which has always been a strong point. This is an aspect of the series I tend to stray away from talking about because it's one of the most subjective elements in a story. What's funny to me might not be funny to you, and it's as simple as that. Nevertheless, the reason why I'm a fan of WataMote's comedy is that it takes chances I don't think any other manga would. This series is well versed in the types of comedy it uses, and I'll cover some of them, but its most notable style is its crude humor. There are edgy jokes, dirty sex jokes, profanity-laced dialogue. It's a route of comedy not traveled by often due to its narrow appeal. In one of the more recent chapters, Tomoko is competing with a girl Fuka to prove that they are more knowledgeable on the topic of sex, when in fact they both are novices on the subject. Tomoko decides to test Fuka by getting her to demonstrate what a handjob is on a clay model. Fuka doesn't know what the fuck a handjob is, but continues her empty charade. First, yelling at the clay model because she thought that's what jerking someone meant, and then beating up the poor clay cock into a state with a technique she called demon jerk. That right there is a glimpse of the raw and unfiltered type of humor you can expect from WataMote. Again though, this series isn't one-dimensional in the field of comedy, as it thrives off of parody and satire as well. Nico Tanigawa isn't afraid to put his knowledge of other series to good use, as WataMote makes a shit ton of references throughout the story to other anime, manga, light novels, etc., creating a comedic spin of said series. Like the one time Tomoko tried to do in the Night Pass like Kuroko from Kuroko no Basket in PE, and she ended up failing badly, spraining her wrist. There was even a time that the mangaka of Act Age, who was found guilty of indecent acts with a minor, was the target of a sneak diss in the chapter. In that chapter, Tomoko looks at an article online about a mangaka arrested for inappropriate behavior with a minor, and she says, quote, "Geez, all manga artists are just lolicons, huh?" And keep in mind, this chapter came out 11 days after the news of Tatsuya Matsuki's arrest, so I have no doubt in my mind that Nico Tanigawa was taking shots, which is still wild to me. As for the characters of WataMote, they are another great component to this series. The cast is hilarious and lovable, and I think it's hard to find more than one character to dislike. Each individual has their own appeal to them, and excluding Tomoko, I often find myself constantly flip-flopping on where I rank these characters among my favorites. It may come down to how recently did I see the character, which goes to show you how well the wealth is spread amongst the cast. In addition, not only are the characters remarkable themselves, but so are their dynamics. Everyone has some one-of-a-kind bond with Tomoko, which either leads to comedy gold or meaningful interactions for the purpose of development. The relationship of Tomoko and Kiko is a good testament to this. Kiko is Tomoko's younger cousin, who was lied to by Tomoko in her attempt to hide her loner reputation. However, Kiko quickly uncovers Tomoko's lies and becomes disillusioned with her, even showing her pity, which is funny considering she's 3 years younger than Tomoko. More than the comedy aspect of it though, Kiko is in the story to serve as Tomoko's foil, having her bright-eyed innocence clashing and contrasting with Tomoko's degeneracy. Kiko strips Tomoko of the veil that she desperately tries to keep up and leaves her insecurities bare for her to see. And these quality dynamics aren't limited to Kiko, it extends to other characters in the series. The only problem is that it takes WataMote a significant amount of time for the full cast to become relevant. In the early stages of the series, there are only about 5 characters whose names you might remember, so it's on Tomoko to carry the lion's share of the slack until a certain point. The only real weak point of WataMote would be its art. Obviously, this isn't Yusuke Murata or Kentaro Miura drawing this manga. The art is rough around the edges, the middle, and everywhere else. And even though this might turn off some readers, I will excuse the art in this regard. Given the nature of the series, and with Tomoko being someone who isn't supposed to be drawn attractive, I think the gritty art works well with WataMote. I know that may sound unusual, but I can't imagine WataMote evoking the same feeling from me had it been drawn super detailed and pretty. The rawness of the art sets the tone for the series, so I honestly wouldn't want it drawn any other way. But Nico Tanigawa, you had to at least give Kiko a fucking nose. The poor girl can't breathe. Damn. But with that, people, that marks the end of this video. This was the hardest video to write for 12 Days of Anime because I didn't want to mess it up. I ended up tossing the script for this video twice in the process of making it. Hopefully my love for WataMote reached you and you decide to start or even give the series a second chance. Regardless, folks, thank you for watching. I'm Satsuki the Savage. Like, comment, subscribe. I am out.
Tasting your soul, you're not in control, just giving you goals. Scared of your past, the future is closed. The start is the end is a start. They both are the same, can't tell them apart. Nigga, that's cuz the intro was the outro.